Many thanks for your company. Now, 52,400 Ghana cedis is causing political problems in Lower Manya. Now, a National Democratic Congress stakeholders meeting in the Lower Manya Krobo constituency to resolve campaign fund issues and the poor performance of the party in the 2016 election turned into a free-for-all fight. This was after the Member of Parliament for the area, Oklete Telabi, allegedly got into a confrontation with former Municipal Chief Executive Isaac Agbotete over money meant for the party's polling agents. We have both men on the line to help us understand the issues better. But before then, let's watch a report put together by Maxwell Kudako. In this report, a number of participants were injured in the brawl.
While few of the party members claimed they were given 200 cedis after the elections, majority of them claim they received only 100 cedis, while others say they received 50 cedis for transportation and food, respectively. The discrepancies in the allocation of the funds generated a heated exchange at the meeting, and one John Chawe was allegedly brutalized on the orders of the MP Oklete Telabi. John Chawe narrates what transpired to join us.
Yesterday, I was here in the meeting. I was in the meeting. We are in the meeting. Some of the guys they went to took my bike. I said, "Oh, who are those? Some thief are taking my bike." I rushed there. Fortunately of that, they said MP and chairman said you have to take my motorbike to put in the pickup. I said no. MP have to tell me something before you take my motorbike. Then immediately I'm talking. Then they started beating me, started hitting me. Then I'm shouting that people thief they are coming there to come and steal my bike, my motorbike. Before people come there, the time I will last. Then I will realize that no. It's today's morning. I appear in Manya hospital. I was collapsed. I don't know. Now I'm talking to you. I don't know where the bike is. The motorbike.
So who sent the guys to attack you?
MP and Chama. The people said MP and Chama. I know them. One of the guy called MP brother. MP is a younger brother. Tevia. And Stephen.
What's the name of your MP?
The name of Telabi, Lower Manya, Honorable Telabi.
Meanwhile, the constituency organizer, Sam Kolete, accused the Member of Parliament, Oklete Telabi, and the NDC constituency chairman, David Walter Homenu, for the mess. He claims the two went for the money and have squandered it. According to him, each polling agent was allocated 200 cedis, but the two collected the money from the regional office and kept it to themselves. He spoke with Maxwell Kudako.
The money is with the chairman, the constituency chairman, David Walter, and the MP. It was the polling agents' money. After the election, there were so many. The polling agents were not paid. Those who were paid were given half of the money. Some were paid full payment, but most of the agents were paid half of the money. Some were paid 50 cedis, 100 cedis, and the money that was supposed to be paid to each of the agents is 200 cedis. So there were so many agitations about the money. And the MP called a meeting yesterday to come and address those polling agents issues. We thought he was coming to pay the money to them. He just came and then talked about the money he received for elections, that he was not meant to share the money for people, but was to organize things for the campaign. In fact, when he finished speaking, then he doesn't allow anybody to talk again. And that was what brought the quarrel among the polling agents and then the branch executives. Some of the polling agents wanted to ask questions. He said no question.
I hear he MC.
Yes, we don't know what happened. What we see is all of a sudden then the MP raised his hand on the former MC, and then we are all there. So all of us separate came around. Some of the guys around came around, and then they helped in separating them.
Meanwhile, when the MP Oklete Telabi and the chairman David Walter were contacted, they both denied the allegations.
Well, we are unable to speak to Oklete Telabi, MP for the Manya Krobo area, and Isaac Agbotete, former MC, because they're caught up in a meeting over this same issue. And as and when they're available, we'll bring you an interview with them. Now, away from that, the Asante Kingdom has changed the venue for the funeral service of the late Asante Hima Nana Ifia Sewa Kobi Ampim II. It is now going to happen at the Minshia Palace instead of the St. Cyprian Anglican Church, also in Kumasi. Now, it's unclear why the venue has been changed, but it's day 3 of the funeral rites already, and Erastus Asare Donko brings us up to speed on what is happening. Hello, Erastus. Good morning, and thanks for your time. Now, we know that you have pitched camp at the palace of the Isumankwa, and he is the spiritual leader of Otumfuo. What can you tell us?
Well, day 3 is here with us, and is all service to Asante Menshia, to be precise. And we have our Queen Mother in state. Tomorrow she will be traveling to the ancestral village. But today is the 3rd day. Today we are going to have a lot of events, just like we had yesterday. It was a thrilling experience. In fact, all the Zongo communities, the Dagbon Traditional Council brought a representation. It was fantastic. The Frafra community brought representation, and it was super. Today we're going to have another tradition. People are going to walk in here and pay their last respect. But if you see behind me, 2 executioners, one to my right, one to my left, they are not guarding me. They are here because of Nana Odumankuma Hene, and he will explain and mention his name, what Odumankuma means. I will go into some discussion soon. Nana Yamoache.
Yaja.
That's to say.
Eradiadon.
Nana Mpachu Frose.
Nana Amwakuma Jimai, a Dumor Dumankuma Hene. Nana
Mwakwa Jiman is a Dum Odumankuma Hene. They call Odumankuma. Dang.
Odumankuma, I agro. Nahima agro no. Say, Asemsi Menshia, this year be free more. Ye no ye de ba. Ye de free adum. Ye ne yeura ba for adum hene. Ye ntwene na anadwene pie amamre mu no ye mfa mpie ye mfa nante awia. Ye de nante anadwo. E free edu ba ko ekodum ye no ye ne ya brafo ene nam. Nti ye nam free Menshia ayi adum. Ye fa fomwa an ye de aba Menshia. Ye ba na ahima ahimfie. Ye betrasia. Ya gura mansana agrono ebe ba no na ahima ebe sori efina na saso ba isa agrono wa hansa nti ye free ye betrasia no ti agrono nka ansa no free na saso ba no ba hasie.
Let me explain that in bit. What he's telling you, Odumankuma is a group. They play their drums in the night, and so before Asante Hema will come out, the group has to play. They have to be present at the palace before she comes out. They only walk in the night. They play their drums in the night. And if you have been watching social media, there is so much talk about the Odumankuma group. They are going to go out in the night. People are afraid. They don't meet people when they come out in the night and all that. Now the man himself is here. Mame Musao. Social media, I'm out for church and some years so Odumankuma group ne de hu yenhia omo eti sen.
No kure Odumankuma no enya ade a sebi edidi agro empie ewia sa anajo no se ne yabrafo ba na yehia wo de a asem timeto tete no asem to
they don't as a group when they are coming out they come with the executioners like those behind me. When they are coming out they do not meet anybody. When they meet you in the past something will happen. That's what he said to Asumami.
Enti ye ba na ye de nam fom ye ne ye hene ba fo dum hene ene ye be fa fom sa afiri adum na ya bra fo kan o adum mpanimfo na ahemfo ene adum enipa nina na ya fa fom afiri ho anante nya ba abedu manhia ye bedu a anajo ne ye de nante anajo free donko ekodu mienu no nti sa me wiyo ma edin sa me no na ye hia wa asem timeto nti ye beduru a na ya betranse ye begoro asiri pa ma de ache na ahomache no ansa ne ne ade hie fori na asa anante akwadum akwa ho na ye kwhya asie esu sujotire no aduma himfie ho na ye kwhya asie sujotire no free aduma himfie ansa ne ne ade hie na ba ti ye ko na ye ne ye mpanimfo na ahema service wo free mu anka na ahema eka ho ene ye ko oni ho de na ko free ma ena ene ye ko no makọ ne akoya amane nyina nti ye free ho a ansa ne asaba ye su ho ansa ne be hasie aba be su ahin
Iti ano na ebesi yawada
ampacho sa.
So if you've been wondering on Thursday the reason why people are being asked to stay indoors, the Odumankuma group, he says they're going to come out. When they are coming, it's headed by the Adumhine Bafo JKS. He leads the Odumankuma group. They come with the executioners. Sometimes if Asante Hine were to be with us today, she will be part of it. But now, Nana Kukufu Hima, Osajefo Muabaye, she is sitting in state for Asante Hima, so she's going to be with the Odumankuma group. When they are coming out, they come 1 a.m. going, 1 a.m., 2 p.m. That is where everybody's sleeping. They come, they do not meet anybody. If they meet you, something will happen to you. That is what he's saying. When they come, they walk all the way from Adum. They come to the Asante Hima's palace. They sit, they play all night. And then at dawn, they walk back to Adum. That is where they are going to cry. It's called Sunjetre. They're going to cry, wail. And after that, the following will happen. So that indoors. You heard it from the man himself.
Enwumre na ya na bekọ ekura ndi ansa na obekọ ekura no edumfo ye hene bafo adum hene edi animu Odumankuma ka ho ene ye mpanimfo ene abrafo ye nina na ye bewe nana edumfo nina sabi nana oda ho ye edumfo dia ye na ye we fia ha enti ansa na obekọ ekura no ye na ye de ne bekọ na ye de na kodu bantuma bem ye nya de ne kodu ho dia ho na ye de ne ko ansa na omahwete aya amane nyina ne dia anajo ansa na nananom adehye no ne abrafo no ede na ko brema bem.
So
Sorry, we had to interrupt that to bring you something that's happening live. Now, it's been 3 years since his death, but the pain of his death remains a memory, a fresh memory in the minds of a lot of people. I'm talking about Komla Dumor, who was a journalist here at Multimedia and later worked with the BBC until his demise. Now, as part of that 3rd anniversary, there's a panel discussion going on right now at the World Bank office in Ghana. And on the subject, issues in broadcast journalism. And the main topic is digital transition in Ghana. Currently, Communications Minister Designate, Madam Esla Owusu, is speaking.
Which provides us an opportunity for greater awareness creation. I'm sure it being tagged to Komla's name will generate a lot of viewer and listener interest. And people who had never heard of anything like digital migration will start asking the relevant questions and also engage with all the players in the industry and enable us to provide the answers that they so desperately need. It is his sterling performance and the quality and the memory that he has left behind that would make it possible for everybody to take the interest in this matter. We're all riding on his name and his legacy to help the public education that is needed in this. And I must thank the foundation for this opportunity. I am looking forward to the stimulating discussions that I have no doubt will engage us in the course of today, sharing of various opinions which can only enrich the discourse and provide useful suggestions to guide all of us going forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity and this audience.
I now call on Minister-designate Honorable Mustafa Hamid to make a statement.
Good morning, Professor Dumor, Professor Karikari, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me also express my gratitude to Professor Dumor for inviting me to be part of this. I am in awe of the gathering already. Many of my professors and teachers in information and communication technology are here. Mr. George Sapon, for the past several weeks, has been trying very hard to let me understand what this migration to digital thing is about, and I still can't get it. But thankfully, I don't have to bother my head with that. Madam Esla Ekofol understands very well. For my part, my concern as Minister Designate for Information, and subsequently, God willing, if I pass the vetting process, is how all of this would help us as a nation be able to regulate the democratic environment that would allow for a discourse that is, if you want, respecting of every individual's dignity, privacy, and so on, whilst also allowing us as a nation to use this as a tool for developing our uniqueness as a Ghanaian people, how it will promote social discourse and help us to promote several aspects of Ghanaian life. My understanding is that the migration to digital television also allows for us to be able to have so many channels, as already we can see with Ghana television. Now we have GTV Govern, GTV Sports, GTV this, GTV that. And so therefore, various aspects of the national life, we now have an opportunity, to make our people understand the various aspects of national life, where now Parliament is virtually beamed into our homes on a daily basis. So people are able to understand the democratic process well and truly, and also promotion of culture, etc., sports, etc., etc. So I am happy for digitization. What it tells us, and on the platform on which we are discussing this is important. Komla Dumor, who I believe is my contemporary, those of us who were born in the early 70s. And perhaps if he was alive, he would be 46, 47. Is that it, Professor? He'll be 44, exactly. And I'm 45, so he's my contemporary, basically. But the point I'm trying to make about it is that Komla Dumor did psychology in university. Consequently, did a master's in public administration or policy or whatever. So basically and fundamentally, he was not a trained journalist as such. And therefore, the fact that he became an icon of journalism tells us how transformation works. In other words, that whoever we are and from wherever we start, if we seek to transform ourselves into something else that will make a fundamental effect on society, we can. And therefore, in today's world where we are churning out thousands of university students who people argue are unemployable or that there is no employment in this public sector, Komla Dumor's life should answer that. It should tell our university graduates that you are truly well and able, no matter what course you read in the university, to be able to do whatever it is that you want to do, if you have the tenacity and the purpose for it. So I'm very grateful to us. It's an opportunity for me to learn some more, so I would sit back and listen to the experts in the field. Hopefully, at the end of the day, we shall begin to carve out a national consensus on how to move our country forward, devoid of adversarial politics and name-calling and so on. I am very grateful, if I pass as Minister for Information, to be able to lead a new regime that allows for dialogue and consensus building in nation building, rather than, as I said, the adversarial politics that has plagued us for the past 2 decades. I'm very grateful for the invitation. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. May I call on Mr. Kwesi Janapintin, Chairman of the National Media Commission, to also make a brief statement. Thank you very much, Professor Kakeri. And I think by this time we know who we are, so all protocols observed. A few months ago, Professor Dumor came to our office to discuss this program. And the first thing that struck me, and I told him and told a few other people, was the fact that he came himself. I told him, Prof, if you had sent for me, I would have come to meet you wherever you would be. But he explained that our institution, the National Media Commission, was important in the scheme of what he and the foundation are trying to achieve. We followed it up with a meeting sometime last week. And we affirmed and said we will confirm publicly that the NMC is very happy to support the foundation and be a partner in what the foundation is doing and trying to achieve. We want to make that statement here publicly. We want to develop some more programs together with the foundation, as we promised Professor Dumor. Personally, I did not know Komla Dumor. I never met him. In fact, I was not in the country for most of the time when he was a broadcast journalist here. So interestingly, I knew him as a BBC broadcaster. And like everyone else, whenever I heard or saw him, I felt a certain pride to see that one of us had opened so many doors, made such powerful statements. And I think this foundation is not just about him, but also for all the excellent broadcasters of his generation who have taken advantage of the liberalization to create such a different atmosphere. I'm resisting the temptation to continue from where Professor Kakeri got to with the ancient equipment. But I think we all remember that less than 30 years ago, we had 2 radio stations, creatively called Radio 1 and Radio 2, and 1 TV station, which, as we know, worked on the Inshallah principle, God willing, 3 or 6 hours. Now, we are talking about 420 and counting radio stations, scores of television stations. And I always fear to give exact numbers because by the time we leave here, maybe more stations would have come on air. So we've done the quality, the quantity. We've done the quantity game. Now is the time for quality. And the switch from analog to digital is not just a mechanical and technical process. It demands that we change our way of thinking. I was just telling Koku Sechiado that just as Rosa Kakere was talking, I realized that when TV was black and white, we used to think in black and white. Now TV is color, we think in color. Just think about it. When you envisage a scenario, it's now color, but luckily most of the people in this room do not remember black and white, so that's all right. But some of us do. Now this switch means training the people, delivering different forms of content. The challenges are there. And I think this forum here will be just the people we need in this country to sit together, take up the minister's word, and really think creatively through evolving new processes for meeting the challenge. When the Constitution was made towards the end of the 20th century, things were different. I think today the governance structure, the regulatory infrastructure for a media in a democratic environment must be met in a different way. I cannot go into the details, but we need to take this into consideration and make this an agenda. I wish to also congratulate Prof. and commend the foundation, and as I've already said, we'll be part of this. Let me end with an announcement that a few weeks ago, Ghana was elected the president of the African Communication Regulatory Network, or ACRAN, for the next 2 years. My predecessor, His Excellency Ambassador Cabral Bliamiye, was the first vice president from Ghana, and I continued, and now it's our turn. And I announce it here because as part of the presidency, we need to organize a number of activities and initiatives. And I think that the people here must constitute the steering committee of what we'll be doing in the next 2 years. And so you have been warned. Thank you very much.
We will also invite now Madame Yolanda Zulika Kuba. Yes, it's an apology. Okay, today our panelists, you can find the list of our panelists at the back of your program. They include Mr. Edmond Fianco. He's from the NCA. Yes, from the NCA. Please, the panelists, these seats are for you. Mr. Fianco, yes. Yes, please. And of course, you know the NCA is the main regulator of communications in the country. And Mr. Fianco has been there for quite some time, I'm sure. Mr. Agosia Jiman is currently the head of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association. I hope he is able to come. Yes. And of course, Mr. Jiman has also been one of the pioneer broadcast managers in this country. He's managed radio stations and so on for quite some time. So these are some of the people who know the ins and outs of that industry. Then we have Dr. Kwame Boakye. Dr. Kwame Boakye is a scientist, and he is a pioneer of the computer sciences in this country. I believe Dr. Kwame Boakye is the first person to have set up the computer science department at the university level in this country, at Legon, in the 70s. And he's been a colleague from Columbia University up into the University of Ghana. And I remember that because nobody even in that academic institution understood what he was about, because it was thoroughly new. And I remember the struggle that he went through to get the university to understand the issues and to do certain things. It was very frustrating, but he stuck in, he's worked hard, And here he is, and I'm sure that if you want to know anything about this technology we are talking about, Dr. Boache is one of the few people we can be very proud of. Please, Dr. Boache, join us here. Honorable Kojo Okon Kroma is also known as a broadcaster first, before as a politician. And in fact, when he entered the fray, he surprised many people. Many people didn't think or didn't expect that he was going to get into that boxing arena. But here he is, and I'm sure he will have a lot to share with us, both in terms of broadcasting, but also perhaps as a legislator, his perspectives on policy questions and so on and so forth. And then when we come to Parliament to lobby for legislation on bills on these issues, I'm sure you'll be a good friend. And also, you represent a constituency that is very close to where my mother's farms were. And the roads there are very bad. His Excellency Ambassador Kabrable Amihia, diplomat, journalist for many, many decades. But he's not a dinosaur in journalism. He is up to date with whatever there is to know about journalism. Currently, he's my colleague at the private Wisconsin International University College, mandated by the university there for us to set up their School of Communication Studies for them. They are lucky, but I'm not sure that they are paying us according to what we are. So, Mr. Kabrable, I'm here. Join us, please. Now, my good friend, Chief Paul Crystal Jirako, is also one of the pioneers in private broadcasting in this country, especially private television broadcasting. Chief was also very instrumental in the establishment of the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, and he's been very key also in activities to try and get a broadcasting law passed in this country and in other policies also. He's also been very active in this business that brings us here today, that is the digital migration issue, lobbying government, getting government to do the right thing, and so on and so forth. And since we are on it, we want to ask our parliamentarians here to facilitate the enactment of the broadcasting bill because I think there are many good provisions in that broadcasting bill, and we need it because it will also add a lot of value to what we are doing. But on that note, I think there must be a lot of lessons to be learned here today that can help in the finalization of that broadcasting bill. So, Chief, thank you for joining us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the core business for which we came here. The first question on the floor is, what is digital transition? What is digital transition? This is a very technical proposition. So I'll first ask Mr. Fianco, who is at the NCA, and then Dr. Kwame Boache, who is also a scientist and technologist, to first lead that discussion. When they have laid the grounds concerning the technology and what it means, then we'll ask our other panelists to also join in the discussion. Because the question is, what is digital transition? The first issue is the situation as it is in Ghana and in Africa. Okay. If you can give us an idea about what's going on in the part of Africa. I'm sure Kabral has some ideas about what's going on in the part of Africa. But what is the situation as it is today? and what does it all mean? And then the question also comes with issues in building a digital platform in Ghana. I don't know what that means. Whenever I hear of a platform, my first image is the platform on which people like the Rollins, the Kufuado, the Mahama stand on to talk to the crowd. So what is all that about? As I cautioned earlier on, kindly break some of these things down. But of course, you can give us the actual technical expressions. That is also important, and then break it down so that we can learn what this is and what they mean. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll ask Mr. Fianco to start, Dr. Kwame to follow, and then our panelists can continue. And then, but Prof, I don't know how we go about this. I think intermittently, people may raise their hands. Let's make it a more conversational thing. So after a panelist speaks, if there are one or two questions, we'll allow that. Then when they all finish, we'll allow more questions. So that, otherwise sometimes you hear something, and then by the time the speech or presentation is ended, you are confused. So, Mr. Fianco, you go first. What is digital transition, and where is it now? And then, what are the issues in building a digital platform in Ghana?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Foundation for the opportunity. So, as the introductory remarks had clearly indicated, we have been broadcasting in analog. I am resisting the temptation of introducing jargons in the discussion. So for analog TV, we are familiar with. I'll just try to.
But what is analog? Explain them as we go along.
Yeah, so that is what I'm resisting the temptation to talk about waveforms, and so I think using the differences would help us better get the picture of what we mean by digital television. So in analog, this is what happens. In analog television, a TV station produces their programs. They send it to a transmitter, which then sends the service in analog format to a television set. So if you are not using a decoder to receive a television service, then what you are watching is most likely analog. I'm saying most likely because there are some digital TV sets in the market now. The differences are these. In digital, what we do to the production of the programs is that we encode them. So that is the first term. The other way we see encoding is compression. So if, as these cameras shoot this frame, what we do in digital is, it is a big file, or the size of what you have captured is big, but I'm sitting in one place. So what the encoding does is that they now look at, instead of transmitting everything frame by frame, they now transmit, let's say, one frame, and then depending on the compression technique being employed, they may now take out redundant information. I'm sitting in one place. What is changing is the movement of my body, but the background may remain the same. So in the next frame, they may just transmit the difference between what they captured earlier and the second frame. And they use a certain code to be able to capture the difference. So at the receiving end, we now have to decode it. So at the receiver, the picture is reconstructed so that the viewer doesn't see the reduction in the data during the transmission process. What that enables us to do is that in analog, we transmit one television station on one frequency. But because of compression, we are now able to transmit a number of TV stations on one frequency. So depending on the the standards that in Ghana we've adopted MPEG-4 for video transmission, for video compression, sorry. So the MPEG-4 allows us to be able to, and the transmission standard is DVB-T2. It allows us to combine up to 20 standard definition, which is what we have in analog. As in analog TV stations, we can combine at least 20 of them on one single frequency or one single transmitter. So that is one significant difference between analog and digital. The other is also the quality. In analog, sometimes what we see, you may get a picture that has some in one snare in front of it. You may have a picture that has ghosts behind it. So these are challenges that the analog signal encounters. But these have been addressed in digital. I will spare you the terminologies. But in digital, the modulation technique addresses these things so that when you get the signal, it is clear. You will not likely get ghosts or get any error. So we have what we call forward error correction. So in digital, the receiver, in the transmission, we make some accommodation for errors. And then the receiver uses that to correct any error. So if you are watching a digital service, sometimes it might freeze momentarily and dissolve, and the picture flows. What has happened is error correction. If the errors are so much that the provision for correction is insufficient, then it will tell you no signal. So in digital, it's either you get it and it is clear, or you don't get it at all. Whereas in analog, it fails gradually. So you may be in a place where you get very sharp pictures, then you may be in another place where it is not so clear. So that is also another difference between the analog and the digital. I should leave something for Dr. Bashi to say. So I would pause at this point. Oh, okay.
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, maybe I will start by putting on my professorial hat. Actually, I have been through this whole transition from analog to digital and so on. And there were technical wars, literally, when things were going from analog to digital. And I used to work at Bell Laboratories, which is, one was maybe these days has been pretty much cut up. I used to be the leading, telecommunications laboratory in the world, where you had all these brilliant people. Of course, the problem with having too many brilliant people is that sometimes it's difficult to get things done, because everybody, wants to go his own way. And as a matter of fact, when the world was going from analog to digital, people did studies to show that whatever you could do in digital, you could do in analog. And therefore, you did not need digital. Okay. But let me take a few steps back and say, what is analog, what is digital? Most natural things, everything is a signal. When you talk, there's a signal. The things that you look at, a signal. So telephone, you have to transmit a signal so that you can hear. And there are all kinds of techniques so that you can capture the signal, transmit it over a distance, and reproduce it at the other end. There are all kinds of technical techniques to do that. And so most things have to be captured as a signal and taken through the process of what we call the capturing, which is the coding, then the transmission, so you can move it wherever you want. And then you have to do the decoding so that it goes back to the way that it started from. Okay. So these three key components are very important. Now, as I said, most signals in the world, most natural signals are analog, which means you sort of look at the level at which things are. and transmit all of those things at each point in time. Now, there's a gentleman called Shannon. He developed a theory that, you know, you don't have to transmit every single point on that signal. If you're able to signal, you know, sort of sample the signal at a certain rate, you'll be able to capture it and reproduce it wherever you go. That was the secret to digitization. That particular, you know, Shannon's theorem. All the stuff we are talking about digitized, remember the name Claude Shannon. He's a gentleman and he used to work at Bell Labs. So the beauty of the digitization is that when you're able to digitize, then it doesn't matter what the original signal was. You are transmitting zeros and ones. And so long as you're able to reproduce those zeros and ones, you can have techniques to build back what those original signals were. So be it voice, be it data, be it video, and so on and so forth, then you don't really care what the original thing was. Now, of course, it puts some conditions on how they should be transmitted. For example, you cannot have something that is too slow, otherwise, you know, the voice you hear echoes, you know, and the pictures that you see, begin to see double pictures and so on and so forth. So the key about analog and digital is precisely that. Digital frees you from having to transmit everything. And if you're able to do digital, then there are ways in which you can save bandwidth, you can save resources, and, you know, all kinds of techniques. But it took a while to develop many of those techniques. So when digital first came up, because the techniques did not exist and the technology was not at that level, you could argue that most things that you could do with digital, you could do with analog. The second thing that happened is that there, you know, in fact I had pictures to show you, but I don't, you know, overhead pictures. The second thing is in microelectronics. That has also been a key part of why we are where we are today. And what that says is that what is a big system today, tomorrow it becomes a card that you put into that system. The next day, it becomes a chip. That whole thing that used to be a big box is now a chip. After that, it becomes a part of a chip. We call it a cell on a chip. Then it goes into software. So what used to be a huge, you know, and I think Kwame was talking about these transmitters occupying rooms. A big part of it suddenly becomes software. And this is the reason why you can put it on the shelf. Because now the software, what do you need? Small storage, you know, device that will, you know. So that's another secret to the whole point of digitization. And because of microelectronics, the cost structure for digitization has been driven down. And there's another thing that is called Moore's, which I suspect some of you may have heard. And what that says is that every 18 months or so, you have the cost of processing. So what used to cost $1 to process, every 12 to 18 months, to go down to 50 cents, you know. So if you have that geometric reduction, you can pretty much imagine where things are going to go. And this is the reason why costs keep coming down. And I tell people that the cell phone has much more power than all the computers on campus when I was a student. And they used to occupy huge rooms with, you know, cooling aids and so on. If you take all and add the power, less than the power of my cell phone. And that gives you an indication of where the digital technology has brought us. And also what you needed storage for huge, huge things